TG Geeks, episode 30, July 20th, 2015. What is the origin of Beyond the Impact? You're about to find out. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we are coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm Ben Raggington, and also here in, it looks like it's cloudy, and it might rain, and I kind of hope it will, Phoenix, Arizona.
Well, this week we have an interview with Jeff Patton, the creator, producer, director of Beyond the Impact. This interview is a little different since we had started chatting with Jeff and decided we needed to start recording, so let's join the conversation. Here we go.
I want to get back to something you just said a little bit earlier about hearing yourself for the first time. Was that when you actually appeared on screen for Beyond the Impact?
Yeah, you know, I had I wrote a small part in there to make sure that I got my FaceTime because I was just interested to see what it was going to be like. And, you know, the first time I saw myself on screen, it was just terrifying for me.
I think it is for most people.
As much as I enjoy the work that we've done and the product that we were able to pull out, I look at it and every time it comes up, I cringe. I can barely... Sometimes I'll be in the room with some of the cast members and even our friends, and I'll start talking when I show on screen because I don't want everybody to hear me. I want them to pay attention to me in the room and don't pay attention to the guy on the screen. So that was pretty much the first mortifying experience I've ever had in film.
I understand that because when we were working with Slice of Sci-Fi, it was not only audio podcast, it was a video podcast, and they had partnered with Sirius Radio, one of the channels, and then that went away. But the first time I saw myself on camera, I was like, oh my God, good grief. Get me off of there. And then I was talking too. So
well, and you know, it's interesting because pretty much half the cast felt that way about themselves. I thought Mark did a wonderful job. And, you know, speaking on the point of Mark, I thought he did a great job. But the day after he saw himself, he's like, you know, are you sure you shot me right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of actors who actually, they refuse to watch the dailies. Be it if they're on a movie or on a TV series, they will not watch themselves. Some of them, have been in the business for decades, and will not do it. Tom Baker of Doctor Who, before Doctor Who, after Doctor Who, during Doctor Who, he would never watch himself because he hated it.
Yeah.
It always made him second guess himself when he was in front of the camera again.
Yeah, the only thing it made me second guess was my wife second guessing marrying me. I look at myself and I'm just thinking, oh God. And then I listened to myself. You know, it's funny, some of the stories that I have when I used to talk to people who I used to work with overseas, or that I've worked with some of the other projects that I've had a chance to work with people who I could only talk to through the phone or over, say, something like TeamSpeak or one of these communication programs that
Right.
wasn't expensive at all. And then when they meet me in person, they're like, you look nothing like you sound. And
Well,
I'm like,
most
thank
people
you
don't.
very much.
Yeah. Well, most people don't look like they sound.
No.
So
Right.
it's really surprising.
Exactly.
I know this gal who she interviewed Richard Hatch of Battlestar Galactica. And during the course of the interview, he just proceeded to completely wax about how sexy she sounded. And I just laughed because she's anything but.
Yeah.
Oh, that is hilarious. I had a chance to meet Richard Hatch on the set of Little Matchmakers. Mario Ortiz, our director of photography, had done this film a few years back. I've known him for about 11 years. We've been really good friends. And he was shooting his little matchmaker project where Richard Hatch appeared as a sheriff, or he was a police officer. And first time I met Richard Hatch, he's like, hey, you want something to eat? And he's holding this food in his hand, and I'm thinking, dude, you're like, you're Apollo.
Exactly.
You're offering me food. You have no idea how crazy this is for me right now. Yeah. So he's very pleasant all the way around instead of just one-timers, which is great.
Oh, yeah. I've heard great things from him, from Alec Peters, who says he's really an awesome guy.
So let me ask you a question. It was kind of on my list of, are you former military?
No, my father was a retired command sergeant major from the Army. He spent about 38 years there.
That explains your salute.
Yeah, the salute that we saw.
The salute is very proper.
Yeah, it's got a good snap to it, and the arm is at a good angle and everything. I thought, wow, that looks quite proper.
You guys thank you, because I have a lot of friends who are military, and I've caught a lot of flack for the fact that I leaned into that salute.
You did?
Oh, really?
Oh, man. Here's something that I learned that's very different from the music business versus film. It's the way that people perceive or they look at things versus their real life. And for the most part, all my friends that are military have been very supportive. I think a lot of times they give me a hard time just because I'm doing this. And when they see me doing something military outside of being very serious about it, they want to make sure that I know that they're not going to let me get away with anything, not even if it's good. And I'm not saying the salute was good, but had that salute been good, I feel like they probably would have said, dude, that really sucked.
No matter what you did, you were going to be wrong.
And they're always telling me next time I need to be on set when you do that, which I think there's some ulterior.
I'm beginning to think that there's a hidden motive.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll make sure that I go back and tell them that I did it right. Okay, so
we're not exactly military people either.
No,
I mean,
it looked very proper.
It looked great.
I won't tell them who told me. Some of my other non-fans, but kind of fans, told me that I had a good
There you go. So tell us a little bit, how did you get started with this? Mark kind of alluded that you wrote a book or a screenplay or something to that effect. Give us a little history.
So, I'll start with this. When I got out of music, I took a trip to Costa Rica because there was some work that we were trying to get done down there. And living in Costa Rica is very interesting because it's not like being in the United States. They're very laid back. They've got the whole pura vida mentality, and that, I guess that it means pure life, and everything happens 2 or 3 weeks later. So if I want to hook up cable or something, I'll call the cable company and they'll say we'll be there tomorrow, and 3 weeks later they show up.
You've never lived in New Mexico then?
Oh, my ex-wife is from Las Cruces.
The land of manana.
Yeah, and I was
yes.
born in El Paso, Texas. So and so while we were there, I had a good amount of time to really put some thoughts into some of these stories that I had kind of come up with in my mind, while working on music, because I don't know if Mark mentioned this. I don't remember him mentioning this. So this is something that I really talk to the actors about, is my storytelling and my delivery of story is tremendously based on music. I love music. It's everybody can relate to music in one way or the other. So a lot of times when I'm at home, or I've got even late at night, mostly when I'm getting ready to go to bed, I'll put my headsets on and I'll just listen to sounds and rhythms, and it kind of helps orchestrate these stories. And so, I came up with this story and I just wrote, and, there are a lot of inspirations behind it because film is wonderful and I have no right or position to knock any film. I'm just not that person. But growing up, there were specific films that I really enjoyed, that I loved, some that people today may or may not like. I was a big fan of movies like Close Encounters. I was, Steven Spielberg. I was a big fan of cult films like The Breakfast Club, that deals with a lot of people, personal things between individuals. And then you had movies like, I'm a big aviation guy, so I was cool. Top Gun 1 million times over. I don't care what anybody says. I think that's one of the greatest plane flicks ever made.
I think the Air Force would agree with you.
Did you happen happen to watch?
Well, the Navy would agree with me.
Yeah, the Navy. You're right. The Navy would agree with you.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, it's okay. I'm not correcting you. I just want to make sure that I correct myself. That way I don't hear it from the airport.
I would have gotten a lot of grief for it.
Now, did you watch the trial that they did for the new Boeing aircraft on YouTube, where the guy put the 787 through its paces?
Oh, the one that did the vertical takeoff?
Yeah, It looks like a vertical takeoff. Yes, it looks like it goes ballistic.
That was beautiful.
It was
I
incredible.
mean, I follow a lot of that stuff, and that was amazing, right?
Yes, it was.
That was great.
I like aircraft too, to a certain extent. You know.
Oh,
I don't know enough about them. I wish I did, but.
Well, and I do have members of the Air Force that are or members of the family who are in the Air Force. So through them I've developed an appreciation, especially for military aircraft. Although now I'm really behind the times in terms of what's out there. I'm an '80s guy when it comes to the aircraft of the day.
I'm with you. Speaking of Top Gun, on the Air Force side there was Iron Eagle. Doug Masters.
I remember that one.
Rescues his dad in the Middle East, which I thought was great. I grew up on stuff like that, and to be honest with my approach, I enjoy films today. But when I was younger, I'd go to a theater and you'd watch a movie like Empire Strikes Back, or you'd watch a movie like Return of the Jedi, or you'd watch some of these movies, and the whole audience was so involved that you'd hear cheers. People would have a comment, or they'd stand up and go crazy. When the Death Star blows up. I don't see that anymore. And I think a lot of that, from my perspective, may have something to do with whether it be the crowd or the delivery. I have no idea, but those were very inspirational things for me. So every time I was building a story in my mind, I always reference back to the feeling I would get when the audience reacted to seeing those things on the screen. And so I would build these little movies in my mind and I write them down, and it was really to pass the time. And then a friend of mine somehow got a hold of my writing. We were going through some old production stuff, and I said, hey, I wrote this one while I was in Costa Rica, and he took a look at it, and he was like, hey man, I think the story is great. This was after him looking at it for a couple days, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm not a director, I wasn't a writer, it was just thoughts that I put down. And he says, I think that we should approach Gillian. He's a friend of ours who's a screenwriter, and I think we should approach him and let him put this in script format for you. And I said, okay, that's cool. It's not a big deal. And so the story goes, he gave the writing to Gillian, and then 3 weeks later, I get a script back. Now, keep in mind, this was about 700 to 900 pages long when I wrote it. And when I got it back, it was like 120, 160 pages long. And it was the script for Origin. Now, the first words out of my mouth are, where is my book? Because this doesn't look like, a story to me. And he says, this is a script. You have to take all the wonderful things about your story and try to condense it down and give the audience a very summarized version of your story that can deliver all the elements that you needed to. And then, a couple weeks after that, he came back with 2 other scripts, which was the rest of the story. So it would have been 3 parts. And they said, hey, we think you should try to shoot this when you get a chance. And I kind of put that on the back burner because at that time, for me, I didn't feel comfortable trying to jump into something that I knew nothing about. Only thing I knew about the movie industry was the music production that we had worked on for it. And at that point, I kind of set it aside. Well, about 6 months later, a buddy of mine, his name is Ray Rotmans. He's my graphics designer and concept artist for the production. He took a look at it and he storyboarded the first little bit of the project.
Wow.
And when I saw it, he's like, I want to show you something. And he sent me these pictures. And it was just amazing to actually see what I could see on paper, on a screen. So at that point I said, well, let's take a shot and see what happened. And that was Origin. And so a couple of people that I had worked with in music were very interested because we had done some successful projects together before. They decided to take it on and say, hey man, when you're ready to shoot, you let us know, and here's your budget. And so I was ready to go. And that's kind of what sparked the BTI, because BTI spawned from that. I got a little cold feet on the film because I just didn't want to shoot anything and spend someone else's money when no one knew who I was. And,
right.
and in my mind, no one would care. They don't know the story. They don't understand any of this. I didn't have the ability to market it to where I thought that anybody would jump on that. And so I went to them and kind of shot myself in the foot and said, hey, I got a great idea. Why don't you let me put together this prequel series called Beyond the Impact? Let me write a story that hasn't been written yet, and we'll put our own skin in the game, and let's see what happens. Let's see if people like it, and if they end up liking it, then I'll shoot the film. And
wow.
That's where we are now with BTI.
So Origin is already got storyboards and is ready to go once you finish Beyond the Impact. Is that what you're...
Well, Origin has a good majority of the storyboards, but what we decided to do, because Beyond the Impact was a brand new concept, Origin is going to change a little bit now, because their idea was, okay, if you're going to shoot Beyond the Impact, we'll back you on this. We want to bring in, or we want to try to get certain actors, certain specific industry actors who could probably lend a little bit of credit to the project. And I felt that being a new director, and this being my first time, and having this ability to be able to provide a platform, I wanted to go with beginning actors. I'm sure, as Mark mentioned, a great majority of the actors on this project are beginning actors. I'd say 80%. There are a couple that have done a few small projects, but, not anything in the sense of industry standard where, they're out doing big budget stuff. And my thought was, wouldn't it be interesting to try and take some new actors from the classroom and work with them for at least a year, give them a character, and be very close to the process and see what we can produce? And so when I talked to the people who were going to back Origin, I told them, for me, it just would feel better just to bring a new story and bring some new faces on and do that. And so in doing that, to answer your question, some of the characters that are in BTI, actually about 60% of the characters that are in BTI weren't even supposed to be in Origin. So now we're reintegrating these characters into the bridge portion so that they show up in the first film.
Wow, that's incredible. And I suspected when Mark said that you had already written the book or had a story before BTI, that I suspected that this would change a little bit of the story is morphing as you film it, I would imagine, as well.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because, first off, I really have to say, and I can't say it enough, the reason this machine works, even though this is the story that I came up with, these actors have done nothing but pour their hearts into becoming these people. That was one of the biggest reasons that I really wanted to work with new actors, not only to give them a platform, something that they wouldn't normally get, but to give them the opportunity to build a character. It's funny, to build a character around their audition. Mark, when him and David showed up for their audition, I had an idea of how I wanted my lead Russian agent to be, and I had an idea of how I wanted my scientist to be. But my casting, some of the people who I was working with casting at the time were like, okay, you need to take a real good look and listen to their monologues and all that, and those are wonderful. Again, I'm not an acting coach, but one of the wonderful things about Beyond the Impact was I was able to watch these people audition and then see that that person would make a great character. So let's build around this person, their mannerisms, the way they talk to me, the way they move. Let's build a character around that. And they just took these ideas that I had for these characters and they ran with it. That is the machine, I have to say, that is BTI. The fact that the elements just came together. They built this world.
It's interesting you should say that, because it's one of the things that I mentioned to Mark about when we talked to him. One of the things that I noticed, and this is actually a credit to you, is when we're watching the first few installments, there's a lot of world building that's going on, and it's kind of necessary because this is a completely new situation. It's a completely new story. We've got a bunch of characters we've never met before, so you have to do some element of world building, which means your story has to go at a certain pace. It's necessary in order to build it. So what do? You use your characters to hook your viewer in. That was probably the big thing that grabbed me, were the characters that we were introduced to. And I view that as a testament to the quality of the acting. And one of the questions, and I think you pretty much answered it, I noticed that these characters are really fully realized. especially like Shepard, him, and Alexei, because they really come off to me as I see them. They just don't look like some characters where someone is just literally going through the lines. You know, they're not just doing something by rote. There seems to be something that's very genuine and believable in who these people are that I'm seeing. And one of the things that I wondered was, how fully realized were these characters to begin with? I mean, did they take a lot of suggestion from you? Did they bring their own ideas to the table? And it's beginning to sound like that it was a bit of both.
It was. And you know what, Keith? I'm sorry you felt that way about
Actually,
about Travis.
Oh, no.
Well,
No,
Keith is the one who didn't like Travis. That's right. Keith didn't like Travis. I love Travis.
And I told Travis, as much as I love Keith, I'm going to give him a hard time. Keith, Travis gave you everything he was supposed to, and you fell for it. And I love it. He did his job.
Yeah,
no, that's great.
it was really, he was, as I said, after the fact, I realized that was the way he was written and that was the way he was portraying it. But he just annoyed the hell out of me.
And you know what? He trust me, he annoyed a couple of other people in terms of the character. And
yet I loved him. I thought he was great.
Yeah, and you know, how it really worked out was, first of all, with the direction, they were all wonderful. Now, there were some that have been in this for a little while, and, you know, they kind of looked at it and they're like, okay, so this isn't really how it works. And one of the things I tried to explain to everybody is, I want you to trust me. I understand exactly where we're going. I know exactly what we're going to do. I know what the end product is going to be, and I know that you have this tremendous ability to deliver what I'm looking for. Just let me help bring that out. Travis is a great example. You know, Travis, when he first came on, he's so, he's versatile. He's versatile in the sense that he is very willing to take direction. And I understand that sometimes, especially with some of the actors, including Travis, it can get frustrating because I'll be like, okay, I need you to not do that. I need you to do this. And they're like, but why? And not in a sense to be standoffish. It
sounds like they're looking for a motivation.
They're trying to understand the motivation. But after I had a chance to spend time with each one of these actors, they got it.
Right.
And then we just moved forward. And they spent a tremendous amount of time in my house. I had all the actors come to the house and I would work on their characters. Now, this would go on for a year. We'd work on the scene and I'd work on how I wanted their character to move their head, because I already saw the scene before we shot it. In my mind, I knew. So I really drew from some of their best qualities, some of their best looks, and some of their best attributes in life. My first AD kills me over this sometimes because his name is Mike Evans, wonderful guy. He's like my work spouse on set. He's been in the industry for quite a while, and his whole thing was, directors aren't supposed to get this close to the actors. And I told him, if I'm not able to get this close to the actors, especially beginning actors, and understand who they are in life, I'm not going to be able to help mold or transform that into what I'm looking for on screen. And then when we saw the screen test, he was like, I understand. I get it now. You're going the right direction. So they all worked so closely with me in that, and with each other, that the ensemble, I mean, Travis and David, it's still wonderful to watch those two together. I have such a wonderful time just seeing them pull it off. Yeah. And, you know, Canberra and Sherry, you know, Danielle, the boss of Crow, and Canberra, who is Mark's favorite fembot.
Yes, the fembot.
They work well together. So yeah, as beginning actors, I tried to get this approach together, and I wanted to see if the formula worked. And again, they delivered, put so much into it.
Well,
their families hate me right now.
Well, I'm sure the on-screen chemistry is just a joy to watch. I've seen Beyond the Impact 3 times now, and my favorite scenes are always the ones that have Shepard and Alexei together. Right. I mean, seeing Travis and David work opposite each other is always a real treat, because there just seems something so natural and very believable. I cease thinking that these are actors doing an outstanding job. I mean, I really feel like I'm looking at two real people, and I'm just a fly on the wall.
I adopted the attitude of Alexei. He's the annoying newbie FBI agent.
Yes, and that's what we wanted, and we wanted to, you know, we wanted to draw that realism. I basically told the actors when they first showed up in our first big cast meeting, you know, I said, listen, I want people to watch you on screen. I want it to look natural. So anything we can do to be comfortable around each other, anything we can do to help, the synergy just be there when you're on set. One of the things that help, is everybody knows everybody in the production. So when you show up on set, you've been working with these people for a year now before we shoot. You've been working with them. So you're walking on a set and you're with your friends. It's like a suit of armor. No one is there to knock you down. They're there to support you. And when you get in front of the camera and you start acting and that support system is there, which it may not work in Hollywood because from my understanding, this isn't the Hollywood way. This is just, I guess, the J. Patton way. When they're there, they feel good and they're comfortable. It's not, here's your script, show up on set tomorrow, these are your lines, this is how it works. And then you feel like, oh my God, okay, I've got all this pressure. So I think one of the wonderful things for the actors, especially as they've become a family, is they're not coming on to set with people who are looking to knock them down. They're coming on to set with people who really care about what they're doing, who have been through that experience with them, and they understand what they're about. So they're comfortable in that space. So it's kind of like a story that I use for Travis, and I'll get past this. I really will. The first time we shot Travis, we were at a restaurant down here, and it was a test to see how him and David looked together. David Wagner, he's co-writer on this project, real good friend of mine as well. Alex's character is a joy for me. He's very solid when it comes to his acting. He's very on, but he's very critical. He's completely not like Alex. In real life, David is completely humble pie. That's his whole thing. And we're sitting there and Travis has got that kind of nervous look on his face. And, because he's in a room with a bunch of people that he hasn't had a chance to work with. This will be his first time being on set like this. And you could tell that he doesn't want to make a mistake. So my DP is like, okay, man, listen, because Mario had worked in this for a while. He's like, okay, so Travis looks a little concerned, and Mario's sweating some bullets and he's like, dude, is this going to be okay? Is he going to be all right? So Travis is like 6 foot something and I'm 5'8", 5'9", and he's this towering guy. I say, Travis, come with me. We go out back and he's in his suit and, he's sweating and he's looking down at me and I'm pointing up at him like Martin Lawrence would a basketball player. And I'm like, okay, Travis, listen to me. I said, look at me, look in my eyes. I said, I want you to go in there when you're sitting across from David and I want you to pretend like you and all your buddies are at a bar watching a mud wrestling contest. Just do that. You're one of the guys, you're cool. So I just want you to go in there and relax and be comfortable with who you are. Just be you. You're going to be just fine. Very next scene, it's like night and day. And ever since that time, this was exactly a year ago. Ever since then, Travis has just become that guy. And he's gotten better every time. And then him and David together, they just command that presence. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure you guys understand. They've done a wonderful job.
It sounds like, as Mark was saying, you come together as if this were a play that you were rehearsing instead of a movie that you're producing. So
yes, absolutely.
It allows people to develop those friendships and relationships that allow them that chemistry on stage so that you're not doing 27 takes. Well, you may do 27 takes, but you're not doing as many takes as if you just come on set and here's your script and let's do it.
Well, I think the other thing, though, is by allowing them to become so comfortable is that it allows for the human, the brain to exercise less on, okay, what is my next line? Where do I hit my mark? That all starts to become almost, for lack of a better term, muscle memory, if you will. Yeah. And then that then allows for more of a genuine emotional content to then come out in the performance, which is I think is clearly what we have been seeing here.
Yeah, and you hit on a very good point when you were talking to Mark. Something I really want to be able to do is give the audience a story, give the characters a story to give the audience. At any chance I get, I want the characters to be able to give the audience something that's relative. And I really appreciate, by the way, the review that you all gave us, because that's the first time you all hit what I was trying to do right on the head. It was,
oh wow,
it was perfect from me. You guys could have turned around and told me, it was the worst thing in the world you'd ever seen. But because of the way you articulated it and the way that you broke it down and you looked through all those layers, I would have loved it regardless.
Wow.
you were able to deliver what I was trying to suggest with the colors and the tones and the tempo, and that goes into each one of these characters having a story. Because I did tell the actors, I said, to me, you have your principal actors and then you have supporting cast members. But I told the actors, luckily for most of you, in my opinion, you're all principal, because you all, I guess it's the Game of Thrones syndrome. Everybody has a piece of the pie, and
well, every character has a story. I mean, if you're gonna set this story in real life and deal with real people, well, each person has a real story to some degree or another. So therefore, each character in this must have a story as well. So it's nice that you acknowledge that. It helps to give breadth and life to each character that we see.
No, I was just going to say thank you for the Mutual Admiration Society here. I wrote that review at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning. So.
Well, you did a damn good job at 5:30 in the morning.
I get up early, and it's just the cats wake me up, and I'm up. So
not a problem.
I really felt strongly about it that I had to write that review. The same thing that I did with Neil Halford and The Case of Evil. I felt I had to write a review. They're just
appreciate
incredible.
That it's for someone. Okay, you were the first written review that we got, and we released it in March. And I was waiting for somebody to say something. Just anyone. Tell me it's horrible. Tell me something. I mean, I'm not sitting on pins and needles waiting for it, but when I saw that, it was like a regeneration of, okay, well, somebody paid attention to something that we did.
Right.
And this is their opinion, and it was unsolicited, and I've never met them before, and that's what I want. Good or bad, I just want for people, if not for my work, to see the work that these actors have done.
Right. We want some kind of acknowledgement, regardless of what is said.
Yeah, we're always searching for. I'm always saying, is anybody listening to our show?
Yeah, trust me, we understand that. Yeah. We get that. We just want someone to listen to us. I mean, whether they like us or hate us, we don't care. We just want
tell us.
Just acknowledge that we're here. So we understand that. That's
understand
what.
That,
yeah, we get that's kind of what you were feeling about BTI.
Well, I was real serious, and I loved the colors that you used, the palettes that you used for the various pieces of the story, and I thought it was brilliant. I really liked it. I wish they had been half-hour episodes.
Well, the next time around, we're hoping to. Well, it looks like we're going to be bringing 2 hours, which will round out the series, and that'll finish it all off, because we really want to try and get into doing the filming. But I appreciate that. In the whole process and growing, and again, my first AD and my wife were probably, at the time, they really disagreed with me on doing this. My director of photography was the same. So my AD, rather, Mike Evans and Mario Ortiz, their whole thing was, you need to let other people do these jobs. And I told them, there is no way I can find my way through this process if I don't understand what it takes to do this job. So I did the editing, I did the sound, I did all that stuff on my own, because I wanted to learn the process. I wanted to understand what it meant to do this and understand what I was doing. That way, when I get into the editing room, maybe this next time around, and I let somebody else put their hands on actually editing and cutting and moving pieces around, I want to be able to sit there and say, okay, this is kind of what I did last time, and this is what I did to bring these emotions out, and this is what I wanted to do to represent certain aspects of it, whether it was Crow, whether it was the diner, the middle of the desert. I wanted to be able to have my understanding of that. That way I'm not asking people for unrealistic expectations, if you will.
Right. Well, you were paying your dues. Somebody told me a long time ago that if you're going to be a manager, you need to be able to do everybody's job wherever you work at least as well as they can.
That's true. And I think also by doing what you're doing and how you're approaching it, not only is it gaining you personal experience, but anybody who would cross your path, anybody, professional, studio producers, whatever, when they start to see your resume, they'll realize that you're someone who is actually willing to really get his hands dirty, shall we say, and do a lot of the grunt work. if this goes well, you might be right up there with other first-time directors like Leo Blomkamp, who when he did District 9, for example, that kind of thing, where he just went and did a lot of the heavy labor because he felt it was necessary, and that got him the respect. And at the same time, studios will look at that and say, okay, well, purely from a capitalistic point of view, they'll take a look at that and say, okay, well, we don't have to spend quite as much money because we don't have to hire as many people. Okay, we'll take you.
Right. And one of the main things that I also wanted to make sure of is I've spent a lot of time in my life and some of the stuff that I've done having to count on other people, not in a bad way, but putting that responsibility on someone else, where in this process, something that I really wanted to try to do was make sure that if this thing succeeded or failed from a visual perspective or an editing perspective rather, because Mario's stuff was wonderful. He shot beautifully. I wanted to make sure if that there was a failure, it would be mine and no one else's. There's no one that I could blame if it didn't turn out, especially from an editing perspective, but myself. So
the buck stops here.
The buck stops right here. You know what I mean? And that's about the size of it.
Can I ask you a couple of oddball questions, kind of specifics, if you will, about the project? The music, Mark said that you had a hand in that. Where is it? Is it available?
The music that runs during, especially in the opening credits, is spectacular. And I mean, when we watched it the first time, we thought, wow, that's got, it almost has Hans Zimmer written all over it.
As well as Daft Punk.
And there are moments of Daft Punk in there too, which really amazed us.
Yeah, I had done work in the industry for a bit. And in doing this project, at first I was thinking of getting with a writer that I'd worked with in the past to try and come up with an original score for it. But then I realized, with the time, and actually there wasn't a time crunch. It was just trying to make it come together and make sure that it looks professional. So I went to, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention their name, so I'll try and just kind of keep that out of the loop until they say it's okay. You go to a company and basically you can license the music.
Right.
But it's amazing because I went to this company and none of these artists I had ever heard before. These are artists that are just not out there. They may be out there in small independent films, but aside from the Ray Charles music and some of that other stuff, these are artists that are just, their music is up there. You pay a certain fee, they get their royalties, but it just blows my mind that so many of these artists, and of course you can hear their inspirations. I am a huge Hans Zimmer guy. I love Hans Zimmer. I love Steve Jablonsky. I love John Williams. I love their sound because they give so much, not just to the film but to the characters.
Right.
If you listen to Hans Zimmer in Gladiator, oh my God, right? I mean, I'm watching Maximus and the first battle scene, that sound just drives that whole scene.
Right.
And so I was very lucky to go through catalogs and catalogs and catalogs of music and hear specific sounds. And then I was like, okay, that's it. That's what we're going to use to introduce Alexei. This is what we're going to use to transition over to Russia from the aircraft scene.
Right.
And it is available. You can find a lot of it on iTunes, believe it or not.
Interesting.
And the credits are at the end.
Okay.
Carrie Musi, who did the theme music for BTI, it wasn't specifically for BTI. I believe it was written in 2007, 2008, but it hadn't been used for anything. When I went to try and get that music done, at first, the company representing him was like, we see what you've got on script. That's not the intent that he had for it. And then my whole thing was like, please.
I want it.
Please. So what do I have to do? Sometimes you have to take greater steps. You say pay your dues.
Right.
Sometimes you're going to have to pay more to get it done. But I felt for the cast and for the story, I would not be doing them justice and everything that they put into it if I just didn't give them my best or tried to provide the best for them. That's the platform. That's what they needed.
Cool. I know I've spent hours and hours looking at Pond 5, looking for transition pieces and little intro pieces and whatnot like that. So I do understand, looking for hours.
Oh, it's work. It's work. But hey, you guys, it was well worth it.
We really liked it.
The story deserved, in my opinion, the best. And hopefully some of these artists, as we grow, I'd like to stick to the same artist and talk to them a little bit and see what it would take to get some original work done, because they're amazing. I thought they did great.
Well, it helps to raise the bar very high. I mean, because you've had that opening narration, and I want to ask you about that in a minute. You've got that opening narration, and then you go right into the opening credits, the very interesting graphics, and then just that really rich score. It helps to set the tone.
Yes,
it helps the watcher, whoever's viewing this, to say, okay, let me sit up and let me pay attention to this. I mean, clearly there's been some time, some effort, some money that's been spent in putting this together. I mean, we've been to a number of film festivals now where you can tell right from the off that it's been done kind of on the cheap. It's a bit sketchy, and you just kind of walk away thinking, well, okay, well, I wasn't all that impressed. But you really do help set the tone right from the first minute of this. And you hook in your audience that way. And one of the best things you can do, and I'm sure you already know this, is that if you don't grab your audience within the first couple of minutes, you've lost them.
Oh, and there's so many stories. I wish I had a lot of time, but going back to my first AD, I had Walter Carlin, who is a wonderful guy. He's that wonderful voice that you hear at the beginning. It was amazing because me and David Wagner were sitting up late at night, and I was like, okay, you know what? I want to do this intro. I got it, and I think that, and as part of the trailer, I want to write this thing where, it kind of covers what the story is going to be about through the voice of our Dr. Schmidt. And Schmidt starts talking, and after we've written this, and you hear Schmidt's voice, and then I could hear the music in the background of my mind as he's talking. And incidentally, when you hear Walter, and I wanted to do this is what I told the actors, and I completely mean this, because I keep going back to the actors, but as I'm explaining this to them, and when I'm telling them, when you hear this, I want you to understand, this is your journey. This is the journey of BTI. This is how I feel about all of you. When you hear this, it's kind of like, I wouldn't call it a battle cry, but a theme for them to understand. It was very passionate. And so I wanted that to be the tone setter, because I wanted them to know you did this not only for yourself, but you made this happen for me. And that means volumes when your dreams can be put up there. I wanted that to set the tone. And my first AD, he watched it, and he's first of all, he's very supportive. So don't think he's running me down at every turn, but he's concerned. He wants to make sure that, hey, you know what? It's you don't want to lose the audience. He's like, that's an awfully long intro. He's like, you see these names, you hear this voice. He's like, I think your intro's like 7 minutes. And I said, you know what? It's a tone, it's a feeling that I think we could probably get away with and setting, because if people don't listen, they're going to blink and they're going to miss a great portion of what the story is about, told through Dr. Schmidt's voice. And you had to have some sort of wonderful instrumentation to accompany that. That's, again, it's the combination drives, at least for me.
Well,
I think it works.
It works really well. And to use the music analogy, that's your overture.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely, because if you look back some of the more classic Hollywood films, they always had very lengthy intros. I mean, even as back as far as the 70s, I look at Richard Donner's Superman the movie, which has the very same situation. It's got just a little bit of a blur, a little graphical thing and speech at the very beginning, and then boom, you go into your theme, which lasts minutes long. And yet it was done so compelling that it grabs your audience, and they are along with you for the rest of the ride. And that's what you achieved here, is you gave the audience something interesting to look at, something interesting to listen to. And for a web-based series, and I've seen a lot of web-based shows, and I said this to Mark, that a lot of them you expect a very low bar. You just, when you see enough of them, you kind of realize, okay, these are people, they're working with a limited budget, they're working with the resources that they have. Okay, so my expectations are going to be low. And yet, when I saw the first installment of BTI, I was completely thrown back
it was wonderful.
At the very high bar that is presented to me and was presented to Keith. I mean, everything about this just screamed professional. And I kept thinking, this is something that could easily run on the Sci-Fi Channel in terms of, even before we actually got to the story itself, I kept thinking, well, from a production standpoint, this is one of the best things I've ever laid eyes on in terms of what is available on the web. I was just completely thrilled by it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That means a lot. And I have to tell you that you don't want to let anyone down, and you never want to go into a project, I think, thinking that, all right, this is going to be garbage. But I did go into it with lower expectations since it was my first time out. And then as I worked through the process and I looked at, it's amazing, because the best way I can describe this is we did these interviews, okay? And anytime I do something, I put my head down. And I've talked about this, I think, with a couple of people who are really close. And I said, you go through this process and you say, I'm going to do this. And I tell my wife, hey, I'm going to do this thing. I want to make a movie. And she's like, okay, whatever. Have fun, dear. I support you. That's good stuff. You know, we'll see you in the real world in a couple days. And then all of a sudden, a couple days turns into 6 months, then it turns into a year, then, you know, and then your wife's like, what's happening here? We did these interviews, and I won't get into too much because some of the cast members will kill me if I talk too much about it. But we decided that, okay, I want to interview the cast members because I want to do, you know, when we release the second portion, I really want the audience to meet the cast members and how they were before they started the journey. And so one of the questions that they asked was, and I thought this was going to be a roast. So I'm thinking, okay, the moment they ask, what was it like working with the director? They're going to start roasting. I can take it. Well, you know, Dave Wagner gets up there and he says this just the most amazing thing, you know, for me, it was just intense. He gets up there, they ask him all these questions, and in his fashion, he answers, you know, solid. And then they ask him what it was like to work with me. And he said some things that were very, you know, it was extremely, I guess we could use the word touching. It really grabbed me because I had no idea he felt that way. And then you had other cast members get up there and they said the things that they said. And, you know, other than the occasional joke here and there, you know, people had said some things about me and about the project that I had no idea they had felt that way. I mean, this is 7 months into the process. You know, you had a couple people who were crying when they were talking, you know, and our wonderful Susan Schneider, who plays Esther, the diner owner with the cowboy hat, you know, she gets up there. And incidentally, my mom had passed away about 4 or 5 months earlier. And, you know, she gets up there and in her fashion, she's all really, you know, Susan's just a lovely lady. She gets up there and they ask her the question, and I'm trying to hold it together. This is about 2 hours later, and I'm like, all right, man, you know, thanks, haha, I appreciate it. And, you know, she gets up there and, you know, she says, I love Jeff, and I wish I never had any kids, but if I did, you know, I'd want him to be my son. And I hit the floor. Wow. You know, I hit the floor. Well, the moral to the story for this is that I had no idea that these people, as a matter of fact, we went back to my house that night, me and a few of the cast members, and my wife was at the house. She didn't show up to the interviews. We show up and we walk in with these looks on our faces because you go through something like that and the energy, it's good energy, but
it'll drain you.
Yeah. And you'd swear that I just lost my pet. You'd swear that. And I was like, get me some wine, get me something. And my wife's like, well, what's wrong? And everybody, you know, you got Jessica Moore over there and you got, you know, Tina Lambert and you got all these people in the living room and they're like, I'll take a glass of whiskey, please. And I'll, you know, just give me something. And I realized that I had been pushing through this process so much that I did not realize I knew everybody was passionate, but I had no idea how much the project had meant to them, how much what we were doing meant to them. And then you realize that I'm responsible for all of these people. I'm responsible for trying to give them a dream or help them realize something that they may or may not have a chance to do again. And then you don't want to fail. You can't fail. And as I tell them now, I won't let them fail. I won't let this process fail. I will give them the very best. And people watch it. Hopefully they're as passionate about it as you all are. You know, I have people say, well, you know, some of it is kind of long. And I try to explain to them, it's not going to be for everyone, but I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to tell the story in a way that you all get all of the information. That way there's no questions left unanswered until the very last episode. And again, my cast, my crew, all the support that we've had has made me want to do better. I can't do worse. I have to do better.
Wow. You touched on something which made me realize when you talked about the level of support that your cast and crew have been giving you. So something that had been nagging at the back of my mind and you just you helped bring to the forefront is, as far as your cast and crew, are a lot of these people are they people that have been wanting to break into the business in some fashion or another, and the luck just didn't work their way?
No, not really. Because I can only answer, you know, from what my understanding, most of the cast members that I picked up were people who had just started in class. they had just started an acting class. So I went to the acting classes to get most of these actors. And then I had a couple of auditions at a friend of mine who owned a wine bar at the time. We had auditions there. And so I've never heard anyone say, or they've never come across as people who are trying to break in. As a matter of fact, I brought a couple of my friends on this project. I work with them, and it was like, hey, I want you to be this guy. All right, you know the guy that's standing next to me. His name is Mark Summerscales. He plays Mason Shaw. He's a major. His whole thing is I'm gonna go to the watering hole. You come in that whole scene. He's a friend of mine. Oh, he's a friend of mine. I was like, hey, you're an actor today. Okay. Well,
and it's really funny because I thought I actually saw him in another show.
No, yeah, and now he's part of the larger story because he's done so well at helping evolve that character. Tina Lambert, who plays Katie's sister, wonderful individual. They're all beautiful. And she had no aspirations of acting. My director of photography is very specific about you need actors if this is gonna work. So at a certain point, it got to where I was like, okay, I'm not going to tell Mario where I got this person.
I picked them up off the street. They were homeless until we picked them up.
And me and my wife were out eating at Cheesecake Factory with Leah Silverman and her significant other, and we were sitting there, and this girl comes up to the table. She's a waitress, and she said, hey, my name is Tina. I'll be your server, blah, 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 blah. And she's got this chipper attitude. She's just really happy. So I look at Leah and I say, hey, Leah, do me a favor. When she comes back, ask her if she wants to do some acting work. So Leah asked her, and the first thing Tina's
she's a waitress. Of course she does.
Yeah.
I mean, every struggling actor and actress is a waiter or a waitress. I mean, please. It's just a fact in Hollywood.
Right. And, of course, the first thing in her mind is, okay, is this like legit or is this like a skin film?
Exactly.
And I'm like, no,
yeah, where's the casting couch?
we're good here. We're good here. And then so she gets up there, she does her scenes, and Mario's like, God, she's wonderful. She did a great job. And I was like, well, yeah. He's like, was she ever an actress before? And I said, no, I found her at Cheesecake Factory. And he starts laughing. He's like, that's funny. And I was like, no, I'm serious. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah.
Well, so there's something kind of old school about it, because if you look back at some of the classic movies of the 40s, 30s and 40s, a lot of people were just picked up off the street.
Yes.
And they became household names as a result of it.
Right. And I think it just added to, in my opinion, the realism. Now, don't get me wrong. You got to respect the process in a lot of these things, because I mean, for certain productions, stuff like that will work. This is just my way. It's not the way of the business. I'm not telling people you have to do it this way to have a successful project or anything like that. I'm just saying it worked from my perspective, for my story, only because I felt that was the best way for me to bring it together, to try to harness some of these wonderful things that these people have in themselves and make that part of their character, which in turn would make it more comfortable for them to feel normal, or I guess natural, in front of the camera.
Right. Well, it's working for you, and that's what counts, and you're all learning the business together. So that's kind of neat. So 2 stupid questions.
Sure.
There are no stupid questions.
No question is stupid except for the one that Jeff asked. So go ahead. Okay.
Whose private jet?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that scene, I mean...
or can you say?
Well, it was funny. We watch it, and Keith kind of looked and said,
I wonder whose private jet that is.
And I'm thinking in terms of the story, oh, it's the Russian jet. And then it says, no, whose private jet is that? Oh, yeah, where did you guys get that?
Okay, well, you got me. It's mine.
Oh, darn.
No. A lot of what I did in this project, and this goes back to a lot of the people I know, I've been so supported by everyone that are dear friends of mine and people that I've known for a long time, because, everyone is so interested in seeing my dream come true and these people's dreams come true. The aircraft that were used in that project was by a company called Jet Methods, and it's a real good friend of mine. His name is Grayson Grove. I've known him for about 14, 15 years, somewhere around there. And he was one of the first people I met when I moved to San Diego before I started working in Los Angeles. And at first, it turned out to be, hey, I just need to shoot a couple of scenes with this, this aircraft here and stuff like that. And then he just rolled out the welcome and just did everything. They flew the plane. They did the whole thing.
Cool.
And it was, some of the cast members, I think it was about 11 of them, all the females that were there. And I think it was one of our cast members' birthdays or something like that. They said they were going to go fly. So I asked him if he could take them up, because I want them to try to, for the ones that hadn't, I wanted them to experience some of the things that, some of the actors in Hollywood may or may not get a chance to do while filming. So he took them up, and they did patterns, and it was great.
Wow,
so his name's
incredible.
Grayson Grove. There's Jet Methods, wonderful company, wonderful business, and him and his wife Kelly are dear friends of ours. So yeah, that's where that came from.
That's pretty cool. So this one is the smoking gag.
Sure. Yeah.
With you can't smoke that in here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that the other thing is
it's ongoing, so there's got to be a payoff somewhere.
It's not just ongoing, but the fact that when Alex leaves the cigarettes on the plane, it's deliberate. Yes. I mean, clearly this is not just some idle, trivial, fanciful thing that just happens to be part of the story. I mean, we train in on that. The camera trains on it. We're made to notice the fact that he doesn't have his cigarettes. And then, of course, there's the constant bombardment. You can't smoke that here. So, yeah, I kind of get the feeling there's a point behind that.
Oh, there's a huge point. You'll find out in part 2.
Okay.
You'll find out in part 2, but there's a huge point. And it goes to Alexi's life, some of the things that happen. We haven't had a chance to really touch on each one of the characters, but I can tell you that there's a lot behind Alex's character. There's a whole lot that we're going to watch. You'll see a lot of transformation. I'm all about transformation. I'm all about wanting you as the viewer to take that journey.
Thank you. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say that.
I want you to pick a character, and I want you to take that journey with that character. I want you to be there, feel their feelings, feel what they're going through. I really want you to relate to someone. And as you said in the review, I'm hoping that there's something for everyone when they watch it. And I believe that I've picked all the right people to be able to take you on that journey, and they want to. Right. So there is something behind that.
Right.
And hopefully you guys pick it up, because I didn't give away a whole lot in the first one.
Right.
But I'm really happy that you wish I had given you.
Yeah. Right? Now, I didn't want to ask any things specific about characters or story or anything.
No spoilers.
I don't want to do any spoilers. This time was kind of...
Whatever you want to ask, and I'll make sure that you don't get any spoilers.
Yeah, this was kind of about who are you, what was your experience, what was your vision for this project, and we certainly would like to interview you again, as well as the character or the
cast.
Actors, the cast that you have. I wanted to ask, did you do a Kickstarter? Do you have some kind of funding? Is there opportunities for people to participate in this, or just expand on that if you wish?
We did not do a Kickstarter campaign. As a matter of fact, most of this was funded, and we do have funds available to do the project. But with that being said, when you run into that, there are certain controls in place that don't allow me to, at some point, may not allow me to work with specific actors or do specific things that I want. So one of the things that we did consider was just doing a Kickstarter campaign to see what we would be able to do, unchained. And I mean that in a sense that have just complete creative control and have the ability to be able to support our cast members, especially financially, because they all worked for free. They got paid zero for this.
Right.
They didn't get paid. And I just feel that because of what they've done and all the hard work that they put in, that the responsibility is for me to try and make sure that train starts to come through. So Kickstarter is something that we are considering just to see if it's popular. And as I've read, like, the whole Kickstarter thing is, usually a lot of people are going in and a project's not done. They want to fund a project. The wonderful thing for us is we have a project, so they know that we'll get done what we say we're going to get done.
Right.
And yeah, so to answer your question is, we did not do Kickstarter before. Kickstarter is something that we're looking at, especially to try and get, more funding so that we can, I want to get the actors paid and probably release some of the chains that would hold us down if we're having to do investment finances. So, yeah.
Well, have you heard about the project that Richard Hatch is doing, Axanar?
I heard about that. I don't know too much, but I heard that he was doing a project. Did he go through Kickstarter to do that?
Well, he it's his friend Alec Peters who was doing it. They did a 15 to 20 minute short, which was released VOD, and that was entirely Kickstarter funded. The reason it was such a huge success is because somehow George Takei heard about it and liked what little he saw, and he went onto social media and he talked about it, and the next thing they knew, they had met their goal in like virtually no time flat.
Yeah.
Right,
and they did the same thing. They're doing the same thing now because now they're doing a feature-length film called Axanar itself, and Richard Hatch is going to be in on that one again, playing Klingon Karn, I think is his name.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And that now they're going to Indiegogo.
Okay.
They're going through them, but they're funded, and they go through several tiers of funding. But every time they announce a new level of fundraising, they meet their goal in like days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think the same thing happened. Jessica Moore, who plays Katie in the project, we were talking about that the other day, and she actually, a while back, she mentioned there was another group that I don't know if you've heard of this, Video Game High School. I think that's what they're called.
No.
They may be on Netflix or something. These guys, and they do a lot of CG work, if I'm not mistaken. They went in there and asked for a couple $100,000, and then they ended up getting close to 6 or 7.
Wow.
And then they did a second season. So every one of their seasons have been funded by Kickstarter, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I think the last amount they got or ended up putting into their production was $1 million plus, which is, that's excellent. I'm not even going to talk about it, but you can't imagine for what we spent on our project, the quality, when you say production value, is extremely higher than what we paid.
Wow.
And so there are things you can do to really deliver without spending extreme amounts of money. I've heard Kickstarter really helps a lot of projects. That's just something I didn't think about when we started.
We're all about cross-pollination, so that's kind of why we like to do interviews with people and kind of get it out there where we don't have the largest circulation. We do have a little bit of circulation. It begins to grow exponentially, and the more we can do to help other people, great. So if you have
to
any
be a little
funding
guys, the
opportunities
largest storms announce themselves by the coming of a simple breeze.
Oh my God! I was gonna be not quite so zen and simply say, hey, all they got to do is throw a pebble in a pond and see what happens.
There it is. It's the same analogy.
Exactly.
Same analogy, guys.
So
yeah, to me, there's no, in my humble opinion, especially working the way that I have been, I don't feel that anyone or anything is too small. You never know. You just never know who you're dealing with. You never know who you're talking with. You never know if you're going to get that one kid that spends all his time in his room watching every sci-fi and has never walked out the door. But if you look on his social network, he's got about 15 to 20 million people following
Well,
him.
we can certainly appreciate that. All it took was being prompted by an old friend of Keith's to go see an independent horror short that his cousin had made, which led us to Neil Halford, which led us to you, which led us to BTI. And it's like, wow, all it did was just going to see this little short, and it opened up a whole bunch of doors. So we certainly relate.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I appreciate it, guys.
So,
now, I got one question, and this is something that we neglected to ask Mark when we talked to him last week, and that is the Russian, the Russian language. Do David and Mark, obviously, Mark mentioned how he came to this with a Russian accent, but the actual spoken Russian, do they really know how, or was there a linguist a coach on hand?
My wife is Russian.
I suspected with a name like Tatiana.
Yes, yeah, and she worked with David. She worked with Mark minimally because Mark is really into the voiceovers and he's very deep into trying, but she corrected them every time, so she wanted to make sure that it was very authentic, and she wanted to make sure that it came across right. So she worked with David, she worked with Mark minimally, and I believe David works with some Russian speakers too in the job that he does.
Oh, cool.
And so everything they did was authentic in terms of trying to deliver the language, and of course we can always do better. They all feel that next time it's going to be much stronger, but my wife really felt, she was very proud of the job that they did, and yeah, that's all authentic Russian. They were all speaking Russian.
Well, I knew knew it was authentic. I was just wondering if they actually spoke the language or not, because I knew that I just knew that you wouldn't let a product go out and have them speak gibberish that only sounds like a language. No, I knew that was something you would never go for.
I'm not sure about Mark, but I know David had not spoke a word of Russian. However, his monologue, he did this monologue for me, which totally won me over, where he speaks in a Russian accent. Oh God, it was great. It was great. And I was like, dude, you're Alex. You're my guy.
Well, that's great. So. It's always nice to see a project that is done where a foreign language is not offensive to a native speaker.
It adds international credibility to it.
Exactly.
Right. Well, yeah, and there's going to be more. I mean, we just brought a couple characters on for the next half who are, they're international, from French to German. As David said, it's a pretty ambitious project, but they said that about the first script, and so I think I'm okay. I think we'll be okay.
If the first installments are any indication, then I have every confidence that you will meet, if not raise, the standard even more so with what's going to be coming out next. So when will you be going back into the studio to start working on the next series of shorts, shall we say?
Okay, so we've already started our pre-production, and it looks like our target is to try to shoot late September, early October, and then we should be done shooting 30 days, and I'm hoping to have our release sometime at the end of November or December release.
Oh, cool.
So that we can be ready to try and get into the feature and get working on that. I'd like to have the feature on the road no later than next March.
So You're going to film the entire conclusion in one shot and then break it up into installments to release on the web?
Oh yeah. We're gonna what we did last time is we shot every weekend, and that was extremely taxing. Over an 8-month period of shooting, and every weekend we said, hey, you know what, we're gonna steam through this next one. Keeps everybody in the same space, and everybody else liked the idea. So we're gonna knock it out, because what you saw was 8 to 9 days worth of shooting.
Wow.
That was 8 to 9 days. So we managed to get, and there's much more footage than 50 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
So
probably 10 times more.
Yeah, so we're going to shoot to try and get it knocked out the end of the series within the next, within 30 days. We hope.
Filming it all together, like you're suggesting now, is a much better idea than doing it every weekend, because now I'm really impressed. Now I have to watch the first part again, because the production continuity is so strong that I would not have guessed that it was done only on weekends.
It was done every weekend. Some weekends it was one day. I
would have never guessed, because I could not detect any continuity gaffe, even from how a person's dressed to the hair. I mean, everything was like perfect down the line.
We took pictures, and, again, this is stuff that I learned because, I'm thinking about the story. I'm thinking about shooting. I'm thinking about the way the sun looks when it hits Katie's face. I'm thinking about all these things. And then you have the support. You have these people. They're like, oh, okay. You'll hear Mike out of my right ear. Take a picture of her. Take a picture of him. Take a picture of that. The diner scene was shot 4 weeks apart.
Wow.
So all the diner scene was shot 2 different days, 4 weeks apart.
Wow.
And so, you learn. You just learn. And continuity is key. Mario Ortiz, when we were sitting down going through the edits that I had done, had helped me kind of look at a couple things and say, well, okay, if you tighten this up, or if you move this person to the left or move this to the right, when you edit, it'll, this should work out. And so you get a chance to sit with some of these people, and you also have to have other people take a look at your work out before you release it and see if they see any of these things. But luckily for us, because we were so on it, or I would say my production team was so on it when we were on set, I didn't have to worry about a whole lot when I got into the editing. I'd say that there was maybe 10% of all the shots that we got outside of the filters or outside of the major editing that I did that we had to try to brush over and fix. I got lucky.
That's fantastic. So for anybody who wants to track what it is that you're doing, follow the progress of Beyond the Impact, Is there any way that they can do so? Are you on any kind of social media, Twitter, Facebook, or any other place in the intertubes, if you will?
We are at Facebook at beyondtheimpact.com. Our website is www.beyondtheimpact.com. That will feature the first full 50 minutes. You'll get to watch the video there, and you can go to Facebook and get those updates. Our primary website will launch here in I'd say sometime, I'd probably say within the next 3 or 4 weeks, which is the Origin website, which will have the web series featured in it. And so we were thinking about building a BTI website, but we decided we're going to feature the video there. And then when the main site is done, you can go there for character descriptions, backstories. There's a whole lot of stuff that we've done behind the scenes. I just wanted to be very careful releasing or putting any of this stuff out because the flow of things is what really matters. To me, it's just like that in film. And I feel that when you're doing stuff like that with the audience, regardless if anybody thinks it's bad or good, I have to be able to look at these things through a view of what feels right and what flows. We don't have to. The wonderful thing about this, guys, is that we don't have to make money right now.
Exactly.
This is just, we're having fun with this. So I have a little bit of leeway to be able to think openly about these things. So I just really wanted there to be a flow of things. BeyondTheImpact.com, Facebook, Beyond the Impact. Those are the two outlets right now. You can also see it on Vimeo, and you can see it on YouTube.
Yeah, we saw it on Vimeo, episodes. So. All right. Well, thank you very much for talking with us today, Jeff Patton, producer, director, creator, janitor of Origin.
Yes,
God.
Custodian. I am, no, not God. Custodial God. Thank you.
Custodial God. Okay, that's fair enough.
For Beyond the Impact. Thank you very much
guys,
for
having
talking
me.
to
I
us.
appreciate it.
You don't need to hear their identification. They're the Two Gay Geeks. They can go about their business. Move along.
Here are a few selected birthdays for July 20th through July 26th. July 20th, Diana Rigg is 77.
And still going strong. Who knew she would be at this age?
I'm
sorry. That sounded awful for me to say.
Exactly. Reed Diamond is 48. You know who that is?
Daniel Whitehall.
There you go, from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Roberta Orsi is 42. July 21st, the late Robin Williams would have been 64. Please know that it does get better. We have links to the Suicide Prevention Line as well as the Trevor Project. Call someone. Also on July 21st, Jamie Murray is 37.
Isn't she on Defiance?
Yes, she is.
I thought so.
As well as she was on
Warehouse 13. She was H.G. Wells.
Yes.
And I love her.
Oh, she is great. July 22nd, Danny Glover is 68. Louise Fletcher is 80.
And she's still flying over the cuckoo's nest.
Exactly. Willem Dafoe is 59. And Rhys Ifans is 47. Sherlock's brother.
Of course.
Yes. July 23rd, Daniel Radcliffe's delicious... Wait, we're not playing Cards Against Humanity. Daniel Radcliffe is 25.
Inside joke for those people who listen to us on Technorama.
Yes. And Tom Meissen is 32. July 24th, Summer Glau is 33. Linda Carter, 64.
And she still looks hot.
She is still going strong. Alexandre Dumas was born in 1802 on July 24th. July 25th, Estelle Getty was born in 1924. July 26th, Helen Mirren, 69.
And she's another one who only gets better with age.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just can... If she's on a movie, I'm going to watch it.
Absolutely. And Stanley Kubrick would have been 86 on July 26th.
And he would have been in a smoky room, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And Blake Edwards would have been 93 on July 26th.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Forget about whether Han shot first. He did. Is it true that Han Solo teamed up with a 6-foot green rabbit? Did Darth Vader profess a devotion to the immortal gods of the Sith? And did Leia's unhealthy attraction to her brother grow for years? Ew. Hi, I'm voice actor Michael Corley, and I want to answer these questions and more on the VoxBox Star Wars Comic Book Podcast. Each VoxBox episode covers classic Star Wars comics, starting with the original Marvel series in 1977 all the way to the present day. So tune in, have some fun, and may the Force be with you at VoxBoxPodcast.com.
Head over to VoxBox Star Wars Podcast and give them a listen. And now it's time for some listener feedback. Well, we don't have any feedback for this week, but we did pick up 5 new likes on our Facebook page.
Hey, that's always good.
Yeah, and if you haven't liked our Facebook page, if you could please go and type in TG Geeks Webcast, all one word, in the search. It'll come up with our page, and if you would like us, that would be absolutely fantastic.
It would be awesome.
Awesome, dude.
Yes.
If you want to comment on our Facebook page or YouTube episode, you can head over there. Or at tggeeks.com, you can leave a comment, and you could receive a shout-out on a future episode. Or you can call our listener feedback line, and we will play your comment on air. That's 469-TG-GEEKS, 469-844-3357.
This is Mark Biaggi, and you're listening to the Two Gay Geeks webcast. You name it, they'll talk about it.
Well, I got a couple of things I want to really touch on fast. The big news is something for all you Star Trek fans. Apparently, they are inviting fans to play a role in the movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
This could be a lot of fun. Now, not to be outdone by the Star Wars The Force Awakens and their Force for Change charity work, that other beloved Star franchise, Star Trek, has developed its own philanthropic endeavor in conjunction with the upcoming Star Trek Beyond. And not only do you get to help out a ton of fantastic organizations doing good work, in addition to that warm and fuzzy feeling you can win with a walk-on role. That's it, people, a walk-on role in Star Trek Beyond. Now, the cast and crew of the Justin Lin-directed sci-fi film have partnered with OMAS, or it's OMAs, I'm not sure, for the Star Trek To Boldly Go campaign, which will raise funds to support 9 different causes and organizations handpicked by the cast themselves. For a donation of just $10, you'll be entered to win one mother of a prize. I love this. They will fly you and a guest to Vancouver, British Columbia, where Star Trek Beyond is currently filming, otherwise known as North Hollywood.
Ooh, I love Vancouver.
I love me some Vancouver. And they will put you up in a 4-star hotel. I was about to make a joke, decided against it. And let you run around the set hugging Simon Pegg and Idris Elba. At least that's the other writer. You know. Anyway, if we do, I'm going to be hugging me some Chris Pine. Yeah. And then, of course, you'll all be gussied up by the hair, makeup, and costume people. And then you will be part of a scene in the movie, which is beyond awesome. Get it? Beyond.
Well, what, they're going to do my hair?
Well, they might put some, tattoos on it or whatever, make you look rather alien-like. You could be like, rum and...
Maybe I could have some hair.
Well, hey! And because it's North Hollywood, it would be, Uber North Hollywood. They could do a really good job of it.
You never know.
Yeah, better than just some run-of-the-mill toupee. Anyway, this contest was just announced and runs from now through 11:59 Pacific time on September 1st, so you better get cracking. There is a video... And we will be posting actually the entire article and the video on our website, because it also talks about what happens if you pledge more than $10. There's all sorts of fun little swag that gets in on there. The video itself is a ton of fun. And I just keep thinking, and I'm just going to put this out, how hot would it be if we won?
That would be absolutely fabulous.
That would be beyond hot. I mean, wow, the Two Gay Geeks.
Exactly.
Yeah, we would have a ton of fun on that. So, but anyway... Go check out the link on our show notes and pledge. But don't pledge so much that we don't win. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Anyway, the second thing I want to talk about is we just saw Ant-Man.
Yes.
On
it was
Friday.
Great. I loved it.
Holy cow. The most fun I've had at a movie all year. Easily.
It was great. It's a great summer popcorn, fun summer film.
I mean, what?
Fun.
Now, I've got a review.
Fun.
Yeah, fun. I've already got a review out on our website. You can read what my specific thoughts are at tggeeks.com. But I want, for people who want to know what your thoughts are, what were some of the things about the movie that you really enjoyed?
Fun.
And why did it stand? Just fun, huh?
Fun. No, it was just a great film. I knew nothing of Ant-Man. It was a great introduction. I loved the way they fleshed out the characters, and the humor was fun.
What do you think of the cast?
The cast was great. I thought the cast was absolutely wonderful. I don't think there was a weak point there.
No, I got to agree with you on that. I thought it was absolutely amazing. There was some fabulous little cameos in there.
Yeah.
Some surprises, little Easter eggs in there with some little guest appearances here and there, which I thought just really helped to flesh out and just further cement that Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, and I just want to ask, why would anybody leave before the credits finish?
Yeah, that's a good one, people. We keep saying...
Don't leave a Marvel film before the credits are done.
Well, I dare say anybody who's listening to this already knows that, because
if you don't know that?
Yeah, if you don't know that, by all means, people, you've got to stick around. And just because there may be a mid-credit surprise doesn't mean that there won't be a post-credit surprise. And believe me, we had 2 in Ant-Man. So if anybody listening to this has not seen the movie yet, stay there until the credits completely finish rolling and you get the second little Easter egg, because it's actually a bigger one than the first.
Exactly.
It's a huge one. It sets up Civil War. So you need to stick around, and I've already spoiled too much. But yes, we loved it, and I just can't recommend it enough. I desperately want to see it again.
Yeah.
And again, to check out my review, go to tggeeks.com.
Up next time, well, it looks like we just have a plain old regular show unless we pick up some exciting interview this week.
Oh, but sometimes the plain old regular shows can give us a lot of fun conversation.
Yeah, they can. So tune in next time.
Same bat time.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Or in this game, same ant channel.
Same ant channel. There you go. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page and a bunch of photos and links to Origin Beyond the Impact. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace.
Cheers.